The summer of 1940, the Battle of Britain is raging. Months. The German Luftwaffe has been bombing London and other British cities in an effort to break the British people's morale. But their airfields are being protected by the brave men of the Royal Air Force, and soon, some of those airfields will be targeted by the Luftwaffe. Can the British pilots win this dogfight for survival? Let's find out. It's me. This is Top Dogfights. This episode is called Top Dogfight of World War II, the Battle of Britain, RAF versus Luftwaffe, the dogfight for survival. It's July 10th, 1940, and the German Luftwaffe has launched a massive air raid against the British city of London. Wave after wave of German bombers are headed for the city, escorted by elite German fighters, but they're not getting there without paying a price. As the Luftwaffe gets closer to London, they're met by swarms of British fighters from the Royal Air Force. Over the city, the dogfights are fierce. But soon, the Luftwaffe will turn the tables. With more and more bombers reaching London, the British fighter crews have to make a tough decision. Stick around and fight the Germans over London, or head out to intercept the bombers before they get there. And that's what we're going to see in today's Top Dogfight. Flying back in time to July 1940, we're going to see two groups of planes go toe-to-toe in one of the most famous dogfights of the Battle of Britain.
The Battle of Britain is one of history's most famous air battles. But why did it happen? Why did Germany and Britain go to war in the skies over Britain? Well, here's why. 1. Britain is an island. Germany couldn't just drive tanks across the English Channel. To invade by sea, though, they'd need full control of the skies to protect their ships and troops from attack by Britain's massive Royal Navy. But Britain's also protected by another navy, the Royal Air Force, or RAF for short. If Germany wanted to invade and take Britain, they'd have to destroy the RAF first. 2. Air superiority is paramount. The RAF was made up of some of the most elite pilots in the world. They flew the best planes and had the best training, and there were a lot of them. At the start of the war, Britain had over 9,000 pilots and 1,600 planes. Germany, on the other hand, had just 3,000 pilots and 750 planes. But Germany had a secret weapon, new aircraft with powerful engines and guns that could fly faster and higher than anything Britain had. These German planes were the Luftwaffe, and they were about to give Britain's Royal Air Force a run for its money. 3. It was a new type of warfare. The Battle of Britain was the first major battle fought entirely in the air. There were no naval clashes like the Battle of Jutland during World War I, and there were no ground troops. It was just planes. German bombers would fly over from France and Germany and drop bombs on airfields, factories, and military buildings all over southern England. The British would scramble their fighters to intercept, and the Germans would send out their own fighters to stop them. The result was an epic dogfight between the two air forces. Day after day, the Luftwaffe would come in massive formations and bomb Britain while the RAF would scramble to defend their country. For months, the battle raged with neither side able to gain the upper hand. It was a war of attrition, and both sides knew it. The Germans needed the RAF to weaken so that they could invade Britain. But the longer the battle went on, the more the RAF grew stronger. Eventually, the Germans ran out of pilots and planes, and the RAF was able to win the war in the air. Operation Sea Lion, the planned German invasion of Britain, never took place. Instead, Hitler spent the next 3 years trying to break Britain's naval blockade by launching massive attacks on convoys bringing supplies to Britain. The Luftwaffe was confident. It had over 2,600 aircraft, including the deadly Messerschmitt Bf 109 and the feared Junkers Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers. Its pilots were battle-hardened veterans from the campaigns in Spain and Europe. On the other hand, Britain had just over 600 frontline fighter planes, mostly Supermarine Spitfires and Hawker Hurricanes. Its pilots? Many were fresh out of training, young men in their teens and 20s. A few were foreign volunteers, and some, like Douglas Bader, were flying with prosthetic legs. But if Germany underestimated anything, it was the spirit of the RAF. But why does the story begin here? Well, this is actually the end. The end of a battle that lasted just shy of 4 months and involved over 3,500 aircraft, 2,000 of which were destroyed. The Battle of Britain, as it came to be known, remains the only major military campaign fought entirely in the air. So let's rewind the clock back to the start of the summer of 1940. just months after Nazi Germany rolled across Western Europe like a storm. One country stood alone, Britain, surrounded by sea, outnumbered in men and machines, and now about to be bombarded from the sky. This was the Battle of Britain, a 113-day air campaign waged between the Royal Air Force and Hitler's mighty Luftwaffe. From July 10th to October 31st, the skies above the English Channel turned into a deadly arena of speed, fire, and steel. The first major military campaign fought entirely in the air, and perhaps the most critical dogfight in human history. By June 1940, the unthinkable had happened. France had fallen. The Nazi blitzkrieg had crushed Poland, Norway, Denmark, the Low Countries, and now stood at the gates of Britain. Operation Sea Lion, Hitler's plan to invade the United Kingdom, depended on one thing: complete air superiority. The Luftwaffe, Germany's feared air force, was tasked with destroying the RAF before a single German boot could touch British soil. If Britain lost the skies, it would lose the war. On July 10, 1940, the Luftwaffe struck. German bombers attacked shipping convoys and ports along the Channel. It was a test, to lure out RAF fighters and measure their response. The skies exploded with machine gun fire and tracer rounds. Spitfires twisted, climbed, and dove like eagles, harassing bomber formations before vanishing into the clouds. Though the RAF suffered losses, the Luftwaffe was shocked. Britain was not backing down. In total, the Battle of Britain would last just over 3.5 months. During that time, 565 British airmen would lose their lives, 1,700 aircraft destroyed. The Luftwaffe lost 2,000 aircraft during that same time, 2,400 airmen killed. So how did the RAF win? What made them victorious? As we mentioned, when Germany initiated the battle, the Luftwaffe had 2,600 aircraft ready for action. Great Britain didn't even have half of that number. But the RAF did have a few key advantages. Firstly, Britain's radar system, while primitive compared to today's standards, was far superior to Germany's, giving them the ability to predict attacks and scramble fighter squadrons in time. And secondly, the RAF had what the Germans did not, and that was a constant stream of newly trained pilots. Germany simply couldn't replace their losses as quickly as the RAF could. In addition, the British public, upon hearing the news of the impending German air assault, took to the skies themselves, joining civilian flying clubs to learn to fly, often donating their newly acquired aircraft to the war effort. Lastly, the RAF simply refused to yield. It's hard to explain why they were able to hold out, why they were able to fight day in, day out. Maybe it was the training, maybe it was their equipment, or maybe it was their spirits. As the weeks went on, the air war intensified. Late August and early September saw the two forces clash in the skies above Britain in unprecedented numbers. During this time, the RAF managed to destroy over 500 German planes, while losing less than half of that number themselves. Fighter Command intercepted wave after wave of German bombers, protecting Britain's airfields, radar stations, and cities from destruction. Throughout the fighting, individual pilots on both sides achieved legendary status, such as German pilot Werner Mulders, known as the Black Devil of the Channel, and Britain's James Ginger James. But the time came when the Luftwaffe's strength began to visibly wane. By mid-September, German airfields were running low on fuel. Replacement parts were in short supply, and as the weather worsened, so did morale. On September 7th, Hitler grew increasingly furious. Up until that point, the Luftwaffe had been targeting RAF airfields and industrial centers with little success. However, on that day, London was bombed, and that proved to be a turning point in the battle. In retaliation for a raid on Berlin 2 days earlier, the Germans sent 250 bombers over London, dropping 400 tons of bombs. Homes were destroyed, people killed, and the fires of London raged. But worse things could have happened. The RAF managed to intercept and shoot down 150 of the 250 German planes. Hitler realized that his gamble had failed. Not only had he not broken the British, but he had united them. On September 15, 1940, the Luftwaffe sent 250 bombers over London once more, backed by 120 fighters to protect them. But the RAF was prepared. 34 German planes were shot down that day, another 26 damaged. It was the deadliest day in the Luftwaffe's history. For the RAF, It was the high watermark of the battle. Hitler called off further air attacks on Britain on October 31st, 1940. Operation Celian was postponed indefinitely. So let's return to our opening scene. We know the RAF won, but these pilots we see flying above the clouds aren't quite out of the woods yet. Having survived the initial aerial dogfight, they now find themselves engaged in a game of cat and mouse with the Luftwaffe. The scene unfolds against the backdrop of slow-motion black and white footage of Spitfires soaring and diving through clouds, mixed with sirens and roaring engines. Our pilots are in a desperate race against time, trying to get out of the clouds before the Germans do. Once out of the clouds, however, the odds will shift in their favor. As long as they can keep flying, they have a chance to survive. But can they stay airborne long enough to reach the safety of the clouds? The tension builds as the Spitfires dodge incoming fire, desperately searching for an opening to escape. The fate of Britain hangs in the balance as the pilots struggle to maintain control of the skies. The Battle of Britain remains a pivotal moment in history, a testament to the bravery and skill of the pilots who fought in the skies above Britain. Their courage and determination saved Britain from invasion, and ultimately helped to turn the tide of the war in favor of the Allies. As we watch the final moments of the battle unfold, we are reminded of the immense sacrifice and dedication of those who fought for our freedom. The Battle of Britain is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and resilience can prevail. The bravery of the pilots who fought in the skies above Britain will forever be remembered and honored. Do you want to learn more about the Battle of Britain? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Tale of Wars for more videos of history's greatest battles.